Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Living in the Limelight, an Anton Scholl and Friends podcast where we discuss music from the artist and fan perspective. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to another episode of Living in the Limelight. I'm your host, Anton Scholl, and with me, very special guest, Mr. Rudy Sarzo. How are you today?
I'm blessed, Anton. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. Thank you for joining us today. We have so many questions, so many things to go over. I have a lot of bass player friends. I'm a bass player myself.
Yeah.
A lot of bass player friends who just bombarding me with questions, but we'll try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have. But first, I wanted to start out by asking you. Now, I know that obviously you got a very cool name, Rudy Sarzo. Okay, great name. Rock and roll name, your full entire name.
What?
Explain your full entire name, because it's like 6 names long or something like that you have.
Well, I was born in Cuba, Catholic parents. So culturally, people that were born in Cuba at the time, I was born in 1950. And prior to that, traditionally, you have the name of your father's side of the family, your mother's side of the family, then it just jumps, leapfrogs. Then again, another name, the side of my mom, of my father, the side of my mom, the side of my father, side of my mom, going back to as long as they want to trace the genealogy of the individual. So mine was Rodolfo. Maximiliano was my middle name, and they usually pick a saint. Whatever day I'm born, that there's a saint attached to it, that's the middle name traditionally. And then Rodolfo Maximiliano, then Sarzo, that's from my dad's side of the family. That's Italian from the Padua region near Venice. And I know this because I've been contacted online. Way back MySpace, a couple of decades ago. So I know, and I've met them when I traveled when I toured in Italy. And then for my mom's side is Lavier, which is French. And then Grande is from my dad's side. Ruiz is from my mom's side. Pare and Chaumont, I think that ends right there. That's from my dad and my mom's Chaumont. I get another French name. So recently I did my ancestry.com because, I was really interested. Both my parents passed away and they had medical issues. And I wanted to see, through genealogy, what I should be looking for as far as what I've inherited from them,
Sure.
So, so my average is 26% from Spain, 23% from Basque, which is very rare, Basque, and and I know that is. I get that from it tells you which side of the family you got it from. So I got that from my mom, because my mom from France, the Basque region of France, the Pyrenees Mountains. That's where the family comes from. And then Portuguese, French, Italian, Scottish, Irish,
All of it.
and then all of it. And then there's 6% that's allocated to 2% Northern African and 4% from the African continent. And that is very normal if you have Spanish blood, because for almost 2 decades, Spain was conquered by the Moors, especially the southern part of Spain. And so all of the Northern African influence. I mean, if you look at the architecture in southern Spain, it's just beautiful. It's Moorish,
Yeah.
architecture. Yeah. So it's really good, to really check out your genealogy, because you realize how much you have in common with everybody else in the world. It's like I happen to be born in Cuba, but in my genes, my blood, I have all these other wonderful, cultures.
Sure. Now, when did you come to the States?
1961.
Oh, okay.
Pan
So you
American
were
Airlines. Yeah,
11.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was 11, I was about
11.
to turn 11. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And culturally, how did that affect you when you got here at 11 years old? How did that affect you being in Cuba for so long?
Yeah, it did not affect me as much as it did when we moved to New Jersey a couple of years later in 63. Because when we were in Miami, there were still enough a community of Cubans in Miami already. It was like the first generation right after Castro came in 1959 that moved to Miami. And then my family had to wait for about a year and a half to get the visas, find somebody who would claim us from the United States, uh, passports, tickets, all of that, and coordinate basically the getaway. you know, so that took about a year and a half to do that, and because you have to do it undercover, you cannot let the your neighbors that you're doing this because they will rat on you. There was
Sure.
every block had was called. I'll say it in English, but el Comité de Defensa, the defense committee, which was basically people looking out to see what you were doing. Now,
Oh,
every block had that, so you would have these people just spying on you to see what you were up to because they
wow.
will have to report to somebody else,
Hmm.
on top, above them. So yeah, everything was done undercover. So yeah, I came to the United States. And then we were relocated to New Jersey, and that's where I really had to adapt to. I mean, when I first got 60 years ago, the traditional meaning of being American was pretty much like John Wayne, a real American,
Sure.
and now, he had an airport named after him down in Long Beach. I live in Los Angeles, so in Long
Oh,
Beach, he had the John Wayne Airport, and recently he was canceled.
hmm.
I still can't figure out why, but I heard something that he was canceled for being racist. And this is a man who was married to a Mexican lady and spent a lot of time down in Mexico. So I don't know. I don't know how they were able to pull that cancellation on the guy. So it's very
Yeah.
sad. But things have really changed. It's so my generation that came to the United States, especially Latin, non-Europe. I mean, even though I have European ancestry, we're not considered Europeans. We're considered Latin.
Mhm.
Because we came from Cuba. That's the way it was. And so moving to West New York, New Jersey in 1963, it was not only adapting, I was in survival mode, my whole family, but personally me, I can only speak for myself. I was in survival mode, having to learn a language really quickly, having to adapt to the the American culture, which in my region, the American culture was a collective of Italian, German, Irish, yeah, pretty much predominantly that in West New York, and that's the neighborhood that I moved into, and not so I went through the Kennedy getting shot. Oh yeah, let me go back to my first day in school in West New York, public school number 5. So I'm sitting there, and at that time I have gone from from Rodolfo to Rudolph, and so I'm in school, and the teachers I hear, they gave me the last desk because I came in late in the school year, and they they assigned me a desk in the back, and I'm putting my books, and I hear the teacher say, "Rudy, Rudy," and I'm like, I'm not paying attention. So I put my books away and I look up, and he goes, "Yes, you," points at me, and I go, "Yeah, Rudy," and I go, "No, Rudolph," and he says, "No, you're Rudy from now on." Okay.
Oh,
So that's how I got the cool rock and roll name,
wow.
thanks to
There
my
you go.
father's.
That's perfect.
That's right. Okay, awesome.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I keep moving. I keep moving on. Because you have to adapt. You say, okay, I'm not gonna fight it. I'm in survival mode here. Okay, name change. Okay, no problem. How do you spell that? Okay, Rudy. Okay, easy. which is better because right now my email address would be Rodolfo Maximiliano Sarzo La Villa Grande Ruiz. Not a whole lot of people will be writing to me, I'm
Exactly.
sure you won't be writing to me asking me to be on your podcast,
Right.
so I would be missing out on a lot,
Sure.
So, that year, Kennedy gets shot, and it was gloom and doom. I mean, everywhere. I mean, I'll never forget the day I was in school when we heard the news and we were sent home, and it was unbelievable. I had never, and being Cuban, to me, Kennedy stood for our hope because he would stand up to not only Castro but Khrushchev.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, okay, this man is going to get it done. He's going to get us back to Cuba. Then he gets shot, and that's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's let's go with Plan B now because we ain't going back for a while.
Yeah.
No, it was devastating. I mean, everybody loved Kennedy. You
Yeah.
know, I was old enough to understand that. So so then he got shot right before Thanksgiving, and then you have this doom and gloom Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then New Year's Eve, and then by February, my generation was going, we need to see the light at the end of the tunnel here because we can't go on like this. And then the Beatles happened, and it's like, ah, this is what
Mm.
we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
A something positive, something joyful, you know, and that's basically in the nutshell. How I all of a sudden now the next day in school, all the kids that were into the Beatles, I would say 99% of them, we started combing our hair forward. Now all of a sudden we belong to a tribe.
Hmm.
Now it's not about cultures. All the cultures are uniting because we love this music and we dig what they're doing. And we dig that the fact that the girls dig the Beatles. And
Yeah.
because remember, when they pan the camera to the girls in the audience and they're going berserk, we
Sure.
all wanted that. All us
Right.
kids wanted that. So that made a huge difference. So once that wall came down, that we all have one thing in common: music, our love for music. That brought us all together.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then I was able to visit everybody else's homes, and they got to know about me, and and me about them and their culture and their food and all of that. And it was
no,
great.
that really opened up the door then. So,
Yeah, but I spoken to a lot of people, musicians of that era, and they all feel the same way. We had so many little groups.
yeah.
The Italians only hanging out with Italians, and the Germans with Germans, and so on. And this just broke down the barriers.
Yeah. Yeah. It brought everyone together. Sure. So then why the bass guitar?
That's
When did
another one.
that first come about? Yeah.
Yeah. So the Beatles are happening. Everybody's got instruments. Whatever you can afford. My parents could afford to get my brother and me. We shared one old Craftsman acoustic bass. I mean, I'm sorry, guitar, an acoustic guitar that they bought from Spiegel catalog.
Sure.
So it arrived from Spiegel catalog,
Right.
and so my parents could not afford to give us lessons. The I could get music education in school, but it was all marching band based, no guitars,
Mm,
and I wanted to play the guitar. So
right.
I started playing trumpet, but it was too loud, so my mom would stick me in the closet to practice trumpet. And
Right.
it did not work out. I couldn't breathe in there, you know. So I'm sticking to my guns. I got a guitar, and my parents finally decide to move down back to Miami, the same neighborhood that we were before. And by now, every single block has a band. That was our social network. That's how we socialized back
Yeah.
then. And so I take my acoustic guitar and I go down to the garage band in my block. I introduce myself and tell them that I want to be in the band. And they look at me and they say, "Well, we got too many guitar players." It was like six guys with acoustic, just
Yep.
acoustic guitars. And they go, "But if you want to join the band, you have to play bass."
Mm,
And I said, "What is that?" And they go, oh, it's like playing a guitar solo through the whole song. And I go, that's for me. I mean, when I've been
And it's
in
got less
ever since.
strings. Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay, so now you start playing bass. Now you have to get a bass. Okay, so
Yeah.
now
Yes.
what was your first? You remember your first bass guitar that you bought?
Yes. A friend of mine sent me a photo because he bought it from me. I think it was a Taisco or a Zingar. And it was impossible to play, which is, I do a lot of events where it involves young musicians, and I always look at their instruments, not only to see the quality of the instrument that they're playing, but also the way it's set up. Because the worst thing you can give somebody that's starting out on an instrument is an unplayable instrument, and sometimes it's just either the you have to tweak the way the neck is, or how high the strings are on the bridge. Sometimes they keep raising the saddles on the bridge just because the neck should be straightened, and they have no idea that you can actually do that. You know, and so I take care of that. And then if I look at the instrument and it's unplayable, no matter what you do, I give them advice and of certain instruments that are very affordable by really good brands that would definitely help them to find the joy of making music with the
Mhm.
instrument rather than to like be in pain, because also that would develop in the long run, straining your hands when you're very young. That's going to develop arthritis and all the painful joints. uh,
Right.
so fortunately for me, when I started playing, let's see, I went from that bass, then I got a job as a busboy at a restaurant, a kosher restaurant on South Beach at a Royal Palm Hotel. This is the 60s, really early, and maybe 66, 67. And then I got enough money to buy an EB, a Gibson EB,
Okay.
one pickup on
Yeah.
the neck, one humbucker. And then I got that because I love Jack Bruce, and that's what he played. So I got it. Got the same thing, but I
Yep.
found it that I was really neck heavy.
Mhm.
I had to spend more time holding it up than actually
Yeah.
playing it. So I went from that to a 67 Fender Jazz that I bought
Oh,
in 1967. And
wow.
that bass stayed with me from playing in garage bands to clubs to team dances to, the pro club circuit, to playing with Quiet Riot. It's in the cover of the Quiet Riot 2 album from
Mhm.
Japan. And that's the bass that I've played with Quiet Riot with Randy. And then when I joined Ozzy, I still played that bass. So it took me from garage bands to playing with Ozzy. And that's what a quality instrument will make
Yeah.
it possible for
Now, where
you.
is that bass now?
I don't know. I don't
No.
know where it is. I know with some of the other basses that were stolen. I know that one was not stolen. I probably traded for another instrument, which is the only reason I get rid of instruments. Just so if I see something that I want, I look to my collection and I go,
Mhm.
what can I depart with just so I can get this other one? Uh, I have about 40, 45 instruments, and a lot of them are not only my signature model, but they happen to be my uh, what do you call that, prototypes.
Mhm.
Prototypes. So you go through like different versions of it,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I just with Spectre, I had a lot of different prototypes with Spectre. I would just return them back to them so they could actually resell them, because
Mm.
then it would become a one-off and not a
Yeah.
production model. But since it was a prototype, I didn't not want to keep it
Mhm.
because it wouldn't be right for me to keep it, because it's not the one that we're settling on, or that we're
Yeah.
given the approval of.
Right.
You know, yeah.
So so what is the process of you going through that? Because I'm assuming there was a lot of times that you may have rejected an idea or thought that no, this isn't right. If I'm putting my name on something, I need to make sure that it is right. What are some of the things that you specifically want to look for so you can put your name on it?
Yeah, ideas are, see, without consistency of quality, any idea that you might have will get lost, because I look for quality. I look at the way that this instrument is constructed and that it's not going to fall apart within 5 years of use.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that all great classic vintage instruments have. If they're treated correctly, let's say they've not been in a flood or in a fire,
yeah,
they'll maintain their quality, or actually you get even better because the wood would age.
yeah,
And the more you play an instrument, the more vibrations you put into it, and it'll just the molecules will line up from
yeah,
the vibration,
yeah.
especially if you're tuned to 432, which nobody really does anymore. But
Is that you used to do? Oh, okay. So you do
yeah, we
440
did.
now?
No, yeah. When I first joined Quiet Riot, unbeknownst to everybody, including Kevin, we were tuning to 432. And I'll tell you how. We had this Korg, I'm talking 1978 when I first joined. We had this Korg tuner that had a pitch wheel, meaning woo, right? And Kevin will hear the frequency and say, "That's it." You're like, woo, that, and stick on that, and you couldn't lock it. You just could put the knob on that note, and so we would then tune. It had a meter, but the master tuner was that pitch, and then it had a meter that so you could tune all the strings to that. And so to just shorten up the story, he would hear 432 normally. So later on, when the new Korg tuners came out, they were rack mounted. Remember, those were the LEDs, and they had like little lines.
Sure.
We would put a piece of tape to the very, very end, and that it was as close as we could get to 432 right there. So we kept it up until the last time that I played with the four guys from the Mental Health version of the band. That was in 2003. We kept it doing that. Beyond that, I don't know what kind of tuning they used after I was not in the group anymore.
So 432, I'm trying to imagine, it's not E flat, is it? It's like just kind of in between, E tuning, 440 tuning, and a little and below. So that's interesting. I've never heard of that happening. I just know a lot of them just go straight E flat tuning because the vocalists or the singers aren't hitting the notes. So that's an interesting theory. I never heard that before.
Yeah, if you really want to go deeper, I mean, this, now there's conspiracy theories as to why it went from 432, because that's the original tuning that classical had. Like when you listen to like a symphony orchestra today, they're not tuned to the way traditionally when you go today to watch, unless the conductor says, no, we're going to tune it to this pitch right here. It's tuning concert, they call it concert pitch. And that's why it's tuned to 440. But that's not the way that the composers way back, would have Beethoven. We would not have it in 440.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to research more about that, check out Pythagoras, who is he's the father of the scale, the musical scale that we have.
The theory? Yeah.
The intervals and the modes. And he found, everything was mathematical. So back then they could figure out the circumference of the planet and even align it to the way that the pyramids are built, because it's all related, right? Yeah. So 432 is supposed to equal the frequency of planet Earth. Pythagoras.
Oh,
check. Yeah, wow. Just go to YouTube. There's plenty of information about that. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up.
Also, if you want to actually see the proof, watch it. Cymatics. Cymatics, Cymatics, which is the effect of frequencies on particles, or even beyond particles, because you're talking about water. But it's all molecules, anyways. So, water is a particle as much as sand, dust is a particle too. It just happens to be liquid form.
So is this all
Yeah.
theory that you went through and learned for music? I mean, are you music theory? Do you read music? Are you
Yeah, I do.
all about that?
Yeah, but this is beyond. This is kind of like being able to drive a car and then find out about the physics of a car,
Yeah. Right.
what makes a car work. You know, and what happened was during COVID, I knew it was going to take a while before I got out to perform it again. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. My initial intention was to educate myself on the healing qualities of music, frequencies. Because when I think of music, it's frequencies, and I wound up quantum physics, and transcendental meditation, which which is they're basically the same, or the same fundamentals. You're
Yeah.
going into the quantum field. That's what you're trying to achieve when you meditate. Transcendental, go to the quantum field. There is the David Lynch Foundation. It's all about teaching people around the world about transcendental meditation. And the president of the foundation is, the last time I checked, was John Hagelin, who happens to be a quantum physicist. So there's a major link between what we do with music
Yeah.
and quantum physics. So I went, like I mentioned, I went down that rabbit hole, and I everything in life that relates to who I am, as far as my identity, just basically all the little cracks, all the little pieces of the puzzle that were missing, all of a sudden they were all right there.
Wow. So it really opened you up to, like, you expanded your mind on, like, oh, I see. Now this is why this is happening. Or, now I can really understand it.
Yeah, it really helped me to look at life instead of 2D or even 3D, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, 7D, just keep finding all the different dimensions, the different layers to our alternate reality that we'll live in.
Yeah.
You live in reality. I live in my own, which is alternate to yours, but you're living in it. And then once in a while, we'll cross paths.
Right. Sure.
Yeah,
Like we are now.
yeah, exactly. Right now, we're
Now,
sharing the same alternate reality because we're having a conversation, but we're doing it virtually, not in
yeah,
person.
true. Yeah. Let me go to where, before I get into all of the fan questions that we have,
Okay.
you've obviously been in quite a few bands. I mean, you have been obviously, Quiet Riot. You've also
Mm-hmm.
done White Snake. Of course, Ozzy. You were also in Blue Oyster Cult for a while. I believe you jammed
Mm-hmm.
with Ronnie James Dio.
No,
Um,
I was his last bass player. I was in the band until he passed away. I joined in 2004, and then he passed away in 2010.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And you were also in
But
the
we've
Guess
been,
Who then, were you not?
that's right. The last band right before I came back to,
Oh, did you cut out? All right, you there?
yeah, I'm here.
You cut out for a second. Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Okay, so then starting out, then how did it come about that you got together with Quiet Riot, with the original
Oh,
Quiet Riot? How did that come about, and what
yeah.
age were you when that happened?
I was about 26, or 26, 27. I hadn't turned 28 yet. It was actually, I was 26. I had not turned 27. I was in 1977. I saw Quiet Riot performing at the Starwood in Los Angeles, the big club. And I walked in. I had no idea who they were, but I looked at the stage and I was really impressed by what I saw. I thought that they had a vision, which was very rare. in those days. They had a real complete vision of, from like the intro of the band to the way that they looked. They looked like headliners in an arena. And I was very impressed by that. And I was very impressed by the guitar player, Randy Rhoads. So, I'm in this club. I had just gotten to LA for the second time. And I did exactly what I always do when I see somebody, either an artist or a band that has a vision. And I know that they're very close, but sometimes you struggle. The closer you get to that is when the big struggle happens, and that's when sometimes people decide to quit right when you're almost there. So I tell him, hey, I introduced myself, and I'm from out of town. I've been traveling around the country, and I've seen a lot of the competition out there, and I think you guys are very unique. Just keep doing what you're doing, and very soon you're gonna get somewhere, somewhere outside of the clubs, the club circuit. So about a year later, I left LA because I ran out of money. So I went to New Jersey to play with my brother in his band. Then I got some money together, and I was ready to come back to LA. And I got a phone call from Kevin. And he remembered me because of my accent. And he says, hey, listen, we're looking for a bass player. And everybody says that you're the style that we're looking for. And I said, oh, that's great, because I'll be in LA next week. And so he says, well, call me up when you get it here, and we'll give you an audition. So I went, auditioned, got the gig, and that's how I joined the band.
Thank you for joining our Living in the Limelight podcast with your host, Anton Scholl. Please feel free to comment, like, follow, share, and subscribe, and also add us to your playlist on your favorite streaming sites. Thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you again next week.